Hey, welcome back to Process to Perform. This is our second installment of that trench warfare series, and I wanted to go to two teams that played last week, the Tennessee Titans and the Cleveland Browns, that really understand who they are, right? And there's nothing better than watching a team that is kind of bringing the most value out of each individual player because their scheme is aligned with their personnel. So we're going to really break down that trench warfare again. There was a great battle here between that offensive line, the defensive line, the box players, linebackers, running backs, etc. The way that these teams use personnel to excel in the run game and also set up the play action pass, the way that they still play aggressive and make big plays using the old traditional model of, hey, let's pound it down their throats, let's get these guys on their heels, and then let's use that play action pass to really go deep. So there's a lot of technical nuance within the run game I want you to check out. And then also, I really just want you to see the commitment to being who you are over the course of the game. Tennessee Titans, for example, lost this game, but the way that they're committed to continuing to be who they are, right? Understanding that even down by 20, down by 17 early in the game, you're going to continue to be, hey, a run-first team. You're going to work at your play-action pass, and they're still making big plays in the game because the Cleveland Browns know the Tennessee Titans are comfortable with who they are. They are going to win or lose being themselves. I love that about organizations who have gotten to that point, right? So kudos to those guys. Let's check these out and we'll get back to you.
We want to check out if we're going to talk about trench warfare, let's talk about two of the teams that run the ball, probably the two best teams in the league at running the football. We got the Cleveland Browns versus the Tennessee Titans last week's game. And I really want to highlight not only the dedication and kind of the way that their head coaches, their offensive coordinators stick to the run, but you just kind of see the way both teams are built to run the ball, play action pass, and stop the run. And it's just such an old school but effective way to play football. Probably, if I had my druthers, this is the way every team would play. I just love the style because I love what it adds as a demeanor to the guys up front, right? So that you see this defensive line. This defensive line is all about stopping the run first, kind of making the tackle on the way to the quarterback. And this offensive line, coached by Callahan, who's one of the all-time greats, and then his assistant line coach, Scott Peters, is an absolute master technician, guru at, he's a world champion jiu-jitsu guy, is probably best hands guy in the league, and just is bringing a wealth of information and value to directly improving on-field performance of this team. And you just see it this year, the way they've been playing. So I love watching these guys. I love watching both of these teams. So let's just get right into it. We're going to watch the first couple series here. I'm just taking this this first time you, first time me here as far as watching this game. We start out. So you start the first play here. We got tight end attached. Chubb comes back into the formation. He's outside the B gap. The suggestion here is just by his alignment alone is that probably he's leaving. You've got a couple guys up and down in 2-point stance this side. You got 3 points this side. So right now we don't have any indication. It looks, right, the way this guy's looking, it looks like he's going to short set or come off the ball. But again, first time you, first time me here as we watch this play. So that's Conklin, right? Great player's got kind of a goofy stance. You'll see a lot of these guys as they come out. I know the one thing that I think Callahan's a big fan of is their feet are going to be out slightly so they can play on the instep, right? And that's there's some different philosophies behind that. I think in theory a lot of it makes sense. You always want to be the best version of yourself from a movement standpoint, so I go about it a little different way, but really, really love the way these guys execute. So now they're all in 3-point stance here. You've got just a 7-man box, so you got your traditional 4-3 with an over defense, meaning that the 3 techniques to the side of the tight end. You got the heavy shade on the center. Nobody's really tipping stance here as we look at this straight up. We got a straight up, we would call it a 6 or an 8 technique on the tight end. Mike's plussed over to the strong side. Again, we're not going to look at coverages today. I just want to look at the trench warfare in the box and see what happens here. I would imagine, weak side run. So we try to get a hook on the center. Let's go back and break that play down a little bit more as we go through this. We got a rookie tackle here who's really doing well. Just take a look at his footwork. Excellent 1-2 drive. Gets caught a little bit. Can maybe get a little bit more push from that guard. Guard's way too high into contact though. So we look at this play and you just see what happens on these plays, right? And why things are successful or not. So you look at the left guard coming through. First all stepping underneath himself. So now he's walking in high. Not a lot of help here on this push. And then, more importantly, gets absolutely stonewalled right here. So this is something as a running back, you're expecting to be able to move bodies backwards. So this guy should be moving backwards, at the very worst a stalemate. Certainly not anything like this. And ideally, you'd be able to hit this a little bit harder, but because of the left guard getting blown up by a linebacker, we have a problem. Let's take a peek. So we got pass pro. And one thing I really like, and you'll see here, I want to show demonstrate. Let's highlight this left guard, okay? So one thing that we do really well here is we keep this defensive tackle, who's a big man and a good player, we keep him away from our body here, right? And this is a big deal. So when we go fully extended here with the hands, he's reworking those hands. He's trying to hop back, and he's trying to keep that guy off of, right there, you can really see it, right? He's trying to keep that guy completely away from him, because if he gets into the body, that's when you have trouble. And so they like to use a technique where you're actually kind of like the Bruce Lee 1-inch punch almost, where you're really extending that arm. So again, we talked about this last week. You have that tight end in a position where he's probably going backside now, right? Just because of his alignment, because of his stance. Like, there's no value in him being this close to the tackle and continuing to do something play side unless you're going to insert him here. So you would block out right here and then insert him. But really, this is usually a situation where they're going to bring this guy backside, right? And they're doing that. They're coming back for that wham block. Great hole. Play side. What a great hole, play side, and why? I think what they're trying to do is really stretch these guys sideways and put the onus on 75 here to get this key one-on-one block. Obviously, 71's going to get that backside. But we're going to push through, okay? And if this guy can hold up and have 64 come over and shove him, right? Because this is always going to be, especially when you have that tight end there, this is going to be kind of a headbutt block here, right? So if 78 Conklin, if he can get a stalemate right here in this situation, they're going to feel pretty good about that. He does even better than that. Conklin does a great job as far as keeping his hands on. So look at this pole he has, okay? And he did such a good job of the center, really, of taking his man, helping that right guard push off, bypassing his guy because the receiver took him. Now comes down and takes the safety. So that's what a really great offensive line does, is you have players who will just make individual plays and adjustments on the fly. So you got the best running back in the league, best running game in the league. All right. Tight end attached. Now, Cleveland Browns have just decided, hey, you're not going to run the ball against us, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. OV, Olivier Vernon, is a defensive end. He could be, this guy is such a freak athlete. He could literally play, he probably could play any position on the field except for cornerback and arguably be the best player at that position. One of the most athletic guys I've ever been in my life. And then they're kind of playing this tight end bump look where they just walk the guy on the tight end, right? And so this do two things. Even if he's not in man coverage with that tight end, it really makes it difficult for that tight end to block, right, when the guys head up, because they're usually not the greatest of inline blockers, and then you're always freeing up one guy. So you basically have 6 guys on the line of scrimmage, and then 93 is playing kind of that middle backer look. So let's see what they come out with. They're going to try, obviously, always try to start running the ball, right, because that's just who they are. They're all in a, downhill demeanor, You can tell he's coming backside, just by the way he's kind of holding himself. He's not looking at anything. He has his head down. He's probably going to come inside here. We're all pushing through, and then they always have to make the decision on this play. Do they want to push the center through? Do they want to bring the backside guard back and try to get the more movement on the nose? But usually these two guys, unless they're indicating that they're going to spike, we're going to have one-on-one blocks here. So really the onus is on getting movement either here or here with that backside B in order to get to that second level. So again, what happens on this first play? Let's highlight that left guard. Second step crossover gets beat, okay? Ends up getting pinned, ends up pinning the guy, but not what you're looking for. Okay, you always want to get, especially at that position, you really would rather have vertical movement, or you'd rather keep the guy square than forcing the running back to a hole. One of the greatest things you can do for a running back is get a yard deep on vertical movement and keep the guy square so you have options. Looks like we're doing play action pass here. So, hey, let's take a quick indicator, though. Here, something I want to point out that was different than last week. These guys, their outside foot's up here, and here. And what that tells OV right now is that he can get cracked, right? This tells Garrett he can get cracked right here. So he's got to scoot. If he wants to get out of here, he's got to scoot. He can get cracked here. He can get cracked here, and he's obviously got 2 tight ends plus the tackle. So they're giving OV a lot to think about, which they should because he's a great, great player. So 95, if you just look at, he reminds me of Julius Peppers. He's a bigger version of Julius Peppers, but in the sense that he doesn't really have pass rush moves. He's just a really, really good athlete that understands leverage. So he's going to win with that inside hand. Extend. Now he's extending. Now he's got that jersey. He can pull it, sit down, right? Try to rip through. And he's such a good athlete that even though he's wide, he can still kind of sneak around the tackle from time to time. Okay, so let's just take this as it comes. You see the right guard. Let's just spotlight him real quick and see how he gets beat. Now, first of all, is there any indication here that 90's coming inside? Well, he is tight, right? He's got his weight back a little bit. As opposed to 4-point stance here, probably not doing anything. As opposed to here, obviously the only way this guy can go is straight to the right. He doesn't indicate anything. He's always in a 4-point, and OV's kind of squared up, so he's probably doing some sort of read. OV really likes to read stutter and then just kind of put his both hands on you. So we got a nice little swim. But why is the right guard getting beat? Really break it down. What's the issue? Because if you catch this guy coming inside, there's a big hole. Ideally, if you catch him, so you take a huge first step, right? Huge first step. It's going to be almost impossible to get that second step in the ground. And now you've crossed over, and this is where problems happen, right? And again, even if you feel like you walled this guy off, if he penetrates at all, right, and you have to turn kind of your back, we call it your ass into the hole, you're telling this guy where he has to run now. And that's problems because you're not letting him be an athlete. So he's penetrated, so now he's got to kind of squirm out of there. He's going to beat that first guy, but now it's just slowed everybody down. You know, the thing about Cleveland is they play hard, they're well coached, and there's always somebody there to make the next play. Okay. So we got 4th down, all right? Now, big 4th down play in the game, and you look at little details like stepping on your center's foot, it create opportunities for bad things to happen. So you look at the left guard and the center, they both lose leverage by stepping backwards, and because of that, left guard steps on the center, play over. Okay, so we got 2 tight ends attached. So we're giving different looks. Want to see, one of the reasons they script a lot of the early plays is they want to see what kind of looks you're going to give. They especially want to see how this guy's going to play, this two tight end looks. You see this guy's always looking like he's coming downhill on Conklin here. So if I'm Conklin, I actually really like this because he might be playing that run super aggressively. But that's also very easy for me if I want to short set him, if I want to flat set him, if I want to play action pass. I can really get into him fast. I'm not worried about him beating me around the corner anymore, right? Even if he was facing this way and had his feet pointed downhill, I'd be a little more worried. But this guy's coming right at me every play. That's a phenomenal opportunity as the right tackle now to kind of look at it like, hey, I'm not taking any plays off because this guy's a stud, but there's only so much he can do from 2 feet away or 2 yards away from me. He's running right at me every play. Like that kind of cuts out half the game. We got play action pass, nice setup screen. These guys are a good screen team because they have great offensive linemen. They've got backs that understand spacing. Great job, great call. So they do quick count as soon as they get one of these big plays. They don't want Tennessee to make any personnel changes. Okay? They want to get up here and they want to get the ball snapped. So again, we got this player stacked back in a situation where he could be a wham blocker. We don't know. Okay? We're indicating here, run. Right, I think I have it pre-snap, but we can tell they're going backside. Again, we got that wham block. And again, another nice hole. Why is it a nice hole? So they do it, again, this is one of those deals where if you're very well coached, okay, and you've been watching that these guys are going to rock when, if this guy's up on the line of scrimmage or if this guy's plussed over, so this guy's sitting over the tackle, they have a call or they're aware that they're calling this a triple. So the guard's stepping, he's looking at his man. If he comes down, his head immediately goes to the right tackle's man. And when that happens, now we can pick up, and now the right tackle's up on the linebacker, and there's a hole here, guys. And this is a it's conceptually, it's a very, very easy play to block, but you really got to work to execute this because it takes all three guys to understand we're going to take over the next man. And that tackle has to still set the edge and then go up and attack that linebacker and wall him inside because that's where the plays are. Because now you've got a really good, strong running back coming on a safety or a corner that's coming from depth, is going to have to break down, has a two-way go now, and really that alley, even if he got hands on him right here at the 5, he's going to drag him for another, 2-3 yards. It's going to be a 7-8 yard game regardless. Okay, so we're back. We got tight end. Now to me, this looks different. This looks different as opposed to the last couple times where he's a little bit more active in his stance. He's a little bit further back and to the left here. So I don't think he's whamming now. We look at these 3 points, 3 points, 3 points across the board. It could be run, could be play action pass, could be straight drop back. You just really don't know. And that's what's so great about how they're running here. And you remember in the first play they gained 3 yards, not very well blocked, but they're going to stick with their plays here because they're confident in who they are. They're confident over the course of the game. They can find success. Now you got to come off on this 3 technique. So again, they're heel clicking a little bit at 75 heel clicks, and they're trying to just kind of push this guy out to the side. I always like to think about vertically displacing this guy because it gets us better power angles with our ankles, knees, and hips, right? So we think about gut drop, hips to hands idea, and trying to drop this step 6 to 8 inches, driving that second step in the ground, and really now trying to drive him this way. And if it turns out that you end up shoving him out the bar like that, well, that's okay as well, right? Let's look at backside, what happens here on the play. Here's another thing to think about while we're watching these plays that I haven't talked about before. Splits matter, right? The splits between tackle and guard, the guard and center. Okay, these matter because it spaces out. It naturally spaces out these defenders because these defenders are lining up. They're not lining up on spaces on the field. They're lining up on players, on humans. So, for example, if I want to create space in the A gap and I'm the guard because we're running a stretch play here, well, I can make this a 3-foot split. Same thing here. You can see that this is a little bit wider split, right? This guy's lining up. This guy is used to lining up, maybe 2 yards outside the tackle, but every foot that you gain right here in the split, right, you can utilize trying to stretch that defense. And alternatively, if you want to really try to capture that edge and give yourself a better opportunity to maybe get outside, you can squeeze these splits down and understand that now you have more real estate to play with. Okay, and if they're doing any stunts, it's very easy to pick those up because everyone's in a smaller space. Let's get back to that nose tackle, though. And as you look at this, you look at the right guard, great first step. And he's just trying to cut, and he's just short on his cut. But again, really, this is what you're looking for. You're just trying to take your right shoulder and put it through this thigh board, not that thigh, not the backside thigh board, right? So this guy just does a good job of staying up. You got to dive on the back. You don't see people trying to cut anymore, to be honest with you. And it's a lost art for sure. I really like watching both these teams. I get a kick out of watching old school football. This is smash mouth football. These guys know exactly who they are. They're confident in their abilities, confident in their offense, confident in their skill players. It's just fun to watch. So great. They run a gap scheme with 75s pulling here. My favorite thing in the world to do. You see, I didn't even bring this up. We have a fullback in the game. I mean, throw this back to 2001. I'm absolutely in love with the Cleveland Browns offense now that they brought this fullback in. So he's going to lead on the safety. We're leading the guard. Kind of something interesting to think about. So because this is a 4A, he knows he's probably going to get stood up here, right? Like the guard is coming around knowing that he's probably going to get stood up. I'm talking about 78 against their 4-eye technique. And so when you're pulling here, one thing that you can do is if this is a stalemate, man, he can just take the hip out of this guy. As long as he knows that 54 is flown over the top, which he probably does, right here, man, turn up, roll tighter, and go right through here and just take this guy out. Right? Again, if he would have just took that inside of 78, we have a much bigger play. But like my coach told me, hey, if you're pulling, you take your read, you do whatever you want, you do as best you can. We're just going to say that you're never wrong. You read it how you see it. Looks like a passing down stance from 71. Now, hey, this is always tough for tackles. When this tight end's in like this, and maybe, I don't know if he's staying. It looks like he might be staying again. just because of the stance. But these guys oftentimes want to get out because they're so wide, so they'll set flatter than they usually have to, right? So hopefully this guy keeps that more vertical set, tries to keep his shoulder pad square to the line of scrimmage and instead of trying to get out there early, because then what happens, you get turned, you take that inside long arm, a lot of options here. So you got that overlook again, 3 technique on the heavy side guard, open here, so you can either help the center, or you can maybe help the center and then look out. We got a tight look here, so it'll be interesting to see. I know we're tight down on the goal line. What kind of rush we get from that left defensive end? Yeah, he's going inside, and you could have indicated that. Like, I'm surprised a little bit that Conklin gets beat inside here, given the fact that he's so tight, right? His guard said, "This is the worst feeling in the world." Hey, just happy to help. Just happy to help, right? Just happy to get in the way. This is a phenomenal job of the Cleveland Browns offensive line. And I would just really want to point out 77. Check out the right guard. I mean, look at he knows he's one-on-one. It's a big man. Doesn't win initially with his hands, and he's just wrestling. He's work those hands back in, and so now when he gets trying to get thrown, look at that bend. I mean, that's just a lot of work. That's years and years of work of technique and just being confident what you do, having a strong foundation so you can make adjustments when things don't quite go how you planned. Just phenomenal.
All right, so you can see the best decisions are made when we have contextual intelligence, right? So we've seen it before. We have some sort of memory of what the snapshot is on the field, and then we have that visual processing unit at a level where we can process that fast enough. When those two mesh, visual processing and memory, now we're making better predictions about what's going to happen next, okay? Now we have contextual intelligence. Now we understand how important, when we're talking about a game of inches, we're not talking about on the field, we're talking about our footwork, our landmarks, right? Our hand placement. So enjoy the next installment. It'll be out in a couple of days. See you next time.